Good day, welcome to your news at noon on Kaieteur Radio. I'm Kevin Smith. 33-year-old Ryan Wharton, a former research assistant with Kaieteur News and a resident of Canary Street, Tuckville, has confessed to being the mastermind behind Monday's armed robbery that took place at the establishment. He even implicated one of the on-duty security guards, 35-year-old Joshua Jr., in the crime. Jr. was seen on camera being held at gunpoint and forced into one of the rooms of the Kaieteur News office building on Saffron Street, Charlestown. But Wharton told investigators that it was all part of a plan. The former research assistant claimed that he and Jr. had planned the robbery with some other men on Sunday morning. Wharton provided an unlicensed gun to one of their accomplices, Ivor Belingi, also known as Wildlife, to carry out the stick-up, and borrowed a car from his cousin, 23-year-old Lemuel Grant. The mastermind even convinced his friend, a taxi driver, 36-year-old Harry Strongster, to go with them on the robbery. Wildlife, Strongster, and Wharton drove to Kaieteur News just after midnight and carried out what they had planned within 5 minutes. Wharton placed the gun and ammunition removed from the safe from Kaieteur News, along with the gun used in the robbery, firearm grips and holster, into a haversack and gave them to his friend Collis Haywood at Tuckville. Investigators arrested all the suspects involved and recovered over $6 million, part of the stolen cash, the stolen pistol and ammunition, the broken safe and the car used in the robbery. And now let's tell you, even though the Environmental Protection Agency is yet to give clearance to the gas-to-energy project, ExxonMobil said it started construction of the pipeline about 6 months ago and is expected to deliver gas to the government in keeping with its 2024 timeline. ExxonMobil's gas-to-energy project manager, Friedrich Crispin, made the announcement last Wednesday while providing an update on the venture at the Guyana Basin Summit. Crispin told conference delegates, comprised mostly of foreign investors, that the construction of the pipeline is expected to take 3 years, as outlined in the company's environmental impact assessment. Crispin added that the government's 300-megawatt power plant should also be completed by 2024, while the natural gas liquids facility should come on stream by the third or fourth quarter of 2025. The project manager was keen to point out it's an aggressive schedule, but it's one they are committed to meet their objectives. In other news, all stakeholders should have played a role in the planning of the Commission of Inquiry into the 2020 elections and the preparation of the terms of reference, so said Shadow Legal Affairs Minister and Member of Parliament, Senior Counsel Roysdale Ford. With the Commission of Inquiry for the 2020 elections set to commence next month, Ford expressed concern that not only were political parties excluded from the development of it and its business, but that the PPP, which also contested the last polls, had all the say in an exercise that affects all involved. Ford believes that this one-sided approach to the Commission of Inquiry by the PPP government puts the party in an advantageous position. And moving on, Director of Energy at America's Market Intelligence, Arthur Deakin, has acknowledged that while Guyana has established a legislative and regulatory framework to manage its oil revenues, a deeper analysis exposes that the checks and balances implemented are closely tied to the executive branch. In his latest contribution to the Energy Advisor, a weekly publication by the Inter-American Dialogue, Deakin alluded that this does not bode well for transparency and accountability. Expounding further, Deakin said Guyana has put in place the Natural Resource Fund legislation, which allows for a board of directors, an investment committee, and a public accountability and oversight committee. Importantly, Deakin said most of the members appointed to the committees responsible for the management of the oil money have either been appointed directly by the President or chosen by the National Assembly, where the President's party has a majority. Deakin said this prevents the much-needed separation between political influences and the billions of dollars flowing into the country. And just before we head to a short break, let's tell you that police on the east coast of Demerara are currently investigating the death of Michael Wilson of Sideline Dam, Golden Grove, who was fatally stabbed by his reputed wife yesterday. Reports are that the 40-year-old laborer and his 30-year-old reputed wife had a heated argument around 8 hours 15 on Monday, which later turned deadly. Information received revealed that Wilson and the woman were in a common law relationship and were living together for the past 2 years. Police reported that domestic problems existed between the two and that Wilson frequently accused the woman of being unfaithful and would allegedly physically and verbally abuse her. With the time now moving on to 12 hours 7 in Guyana, we'll take a short break and return with your news.
This is GHK Lal inviting you to join me weekdays from Monday to Friday on the National Outlook for commentary on a range of issues, immediately after the 12 noon and 7 p.m. newscasts on Kaieteur Radio at 99.1 FM and 99.5 FM. Looking forward to you sharing in the conversation.
Welcome back. Let us continue with the news. 2 persons are now dead following an accident on the Kaieteur public road currently in Berbice. Dead is 54-year-old Yusuf Ali of Joanna South Blackbush Polder Quarantine. The second victim, who was reportedly driving the bus, has not been identified. Reports are that on Sunday at about just after midnight, Ali was the passenger in a minibus owned by him, while the man who has not been identified was the driver. It is alleged that the bus was proceeding south along the eastern lane of the Kaieteur public road when the driver lost control and crashed into a parked truck. And in other news, while both the PPP and the PNCR have been flagged in the past for lack of transparency over the past 2 years, strides made to this end have been reversed by the incumbent administration. This is according to the president of the Guyana Institute for Transparency, Inc., or TIGI, Frederick Collins, who noted that citizens are even now afraid to speak out against corruption due to possible consequences. Guyana, during the year 2021, dropped 2 points on the Transparency International Corruption Index, meaning that corruption in the country's public sector climbed after a full year under the PPP government. When the PPPC demitted office back in 2015, the country was scoring below 30 points. During the years of the APNUAFC, that score steadily improved, reaching 41. However, in the latest ranking by Transparency International, a global coalition against corruption, Guyana's performance dropped from 41% in 2020 to 39% in 2021. And moving on, 5 months after members of the Guyana Public Service Cooperative Credit Union signed a petition demanding a special general meeting where they were expected to vote out of the majority of the agency's management committee, the organization has finally issued a notice to host the forum on October 24th. The notice comes after a High Court judge ordered the Committee of Management to adhere to the members' demands by issuing a notice within 10 days of the ruling. Once more than 25 credit union members sign a petition, the COM is legally required to have the meeting, but had denied the members the opportunity. The special general meeting will be held at the New Central High School on Princess Street, Georgetown on October 24th from 8 a.m. And at this time, we close things off with the page 7 of today's Kaieteur News, dedicated to, of course, being blunt. Wither the overdue cost oil audits. What audacity, what disregard by the Guyana government to offer no word in the important cost oil audits being done to verify the spending of the oil companies. Now, Vice President Bauret Jadio has insisted that Guyana's only way of financially protecting itself against bloated costs, overspending, dishonesty, and all other means of us losing oil money is by auditing the spending of the oil operators. Yet, to date, Guyana has heard nothing final on its pre-contract costs and those that followed. Guyanese were told that by September, the results of those checks would be available. We have heard nothing, not a comment or an update from our elected leaders. Jagdew insisted that Guyana has no co-management arrangement and joked that people believe Guyana owns ESSO or has shares in the company when asked about monitoring oil spending. Again, he said that only audits protect us. So why are Guyanese not being told about their oil money? Guyanese must ask this government for the cost oil audits. And that brings us to the end of today's News at Noon. I'm Kevin Smith. Thank you for listening.